the segment on judging and tag rugby. Now, Niels has described the very contactful form of rugby known as rugby union. Tag rugby is a bit of a different game. It shares some characteristics. It shares the shape of the ball. It shares some of the ways of scoring and so on. But I'm not going to spend a great deal of time explaining what tag rugby actually is, because to be honest, the main focus that I'm trying to do here is the sort of overlap between tag rugby and judging. I have been a tag rugby referee for almost as long as I've been a judge. I started refereeing in 2002, and I started judging in 1997, I guess. And the tag rugby is based more on rugby league, so where teams only get 6 chances to bring the ball forward enough to score a try, and then they have to give it to the other team. And tag rugby is a minimal contact sport. The majority of tag rugby is played with mixed teams, so both men and women playing on the field at once. Women get an extra point when they score to try and encourage the men to bring them into play. But yes, as I said, it's a minimal contact sport, and players are encouraged. One of the slogans we have is "Run at spaces, not faces." Technical matter briefly. We had a few of the earlier folks were having a bit of difficulty with running the shares and videos. I have put up a share live. If you have it open, it's a picture of a pitch with the word communication superimposed on it. If at any point your frame rate or anything else you have makes it difficult for you to follow what I'm streaming, you go into the seminar information channel where there's a link to a YouTube video that has all of the videos that I'll be running, so you can watch it that way if you want. So the first aspect of the connections between refereeing tag rugby and playing magic and judging magic that I'm going to look at is communication. And so I'll play the first segment of our video now. And this is me refereeing. So in this case, I've called a player back rather than penalising, prevented a penalty from happening. Again, active management of the players in order to try and prevent them from committing violations. So first of all, tell me if the video share has been any good. So okay, we're not getting audio from the stream. That's problematic. I did have a few issues when I was testing it earlier. So again, if you are having difficulties, please go over to the YouTube link that I've put in the seminar information, and I'll shout when you need to put on each segment. The communication in tag rugby as a referee, there's a huge dependency on communication, clearly, as much so as there is in judging, but more so in tag rugby, where we need to be a lot shorter and a lot more concise in what we say. You will need to be clear with the people you're speaking to. Obviously, in a lot of judging and refereeing contexts, you're dealing with people who speak the same native language as you. If you're judging internationally or refereeing internationally, that might not always hold true. Although in the case of tag rugby, it's much bigger, the amount of people who speak English. Equally, I have had occasions where I've been refereeing with French teams and have been able to use the fact that I speak reasonably decent French to communicate more effectively with them. As with rugby union and rugby league, communication between the referee and the players is two-way, and they need to keep it up in order to make sure that the rules are followed and the players understand what's gone wrong. And in the third segment of the clip that I just shown, I penalised a player for contact. He was not entirely satisfied about the penalty, and I had to go back to say that he needed to actively avoid contact rather than just running straight at someone. The timelines of communication I'll come to timelines more in a moment. The timelines of communication are of relevance as well into judging. In judging, if you go off and give a long announcement, you will lose people, particularly if it's over reasonably dubious hall loudspeaker systems, which we're all familiar with to a greater or lesser degree. Um, so you need to keep it clear. You need to keep it short. But not as short as rugby, where the players will have started the next phase of play, and if you're already still back explaining what's just gone wrong, you will end up not catching up. So the next segment of the video I'm going to run now is called Knowing the Rules. So if you're watching it on the YouTube side, please fire up that section. This one has a commentator, and my voice isn't recording. Okay, so in this case, I was able to call a relatively technical infringement because I was familiar with the rules of the game. And is that as important as in judging as in magic, in judging as in refereeing? Yes, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to know the rules of the game in order to succeed as a referee or as a judge. You probably have more importance with the in as a referee than as a judge. In refereeing, you usually have nobody else to refer to. In the world of tag rugby and amateur sport, and even up to this was an international game between Great Britain and Ireland, it was a single person thing as the referee. I didn't have any support. At some very important games, we get to have touch judges. We get to have two people running along the sidelines in order to help ourselves out. We don't get that. We don't get that as a default. And when you're in the world of judging, you'll often have the opportunity to consult another judge at your tournament. If there is no other judge, we've got Discords and IRCs and phone calls. Goodness knows how long it's been since we made one of those. But you're able to refer matters to other people and get a different interpretation on the situation, and that ties in through to timelines, because as a referee, you don't have the chance to take ages over your decision. If you carry on, if you hold on too long for a decision, aside from the fact that you'll delay the game, you'll also adversely affect people's confidence in you, and they won't be as satisfied with your decision, and they'll try harder to challenge it. If you've taken so much time, they will think you're less confident about what you're doing. And I guess you've also got different rules enforcement levels. As a referee, I find that the players, as you move, it's interesting as you move up the levels of match. We have sort of defined levels from beginner to intermediate to A grade, super grade, and international. Why they didn't just do them as levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, but that's what we have. The As you move up the levels, it's an interesting effect. First off, people who are at the very new levels, the beginners and people who've just started playing the game, they will tend not to understand the rules very well. They'll have an idea of the basics. They'll have an idea of the key concepts. But you'll start to find if anything complex comes up, that they'll just freeze and stop, and you'll need to take your time to explain stuff. And that translates quite well to your FNMs or your pre-releases, where you've got people who are new to the game, where they don't necessarily explain things very well, or sorry, understand things very well, and you're able to take the time to explain it. Now, interestingly, at the other end, at the international level, like the match that we just saw, um, at that level, players are very familiar with the rules. They're very well capable of exploiting different rules, and moreover, they're capable of exploiting rules that they think the referee might not spot. And therefore, as a referee, I need to be most on top of it. And that also translates well to Magic. You move over to a players tour, or the day two of a Magic Fest. Not that we ever have any of these, but hopefully soon. At these types of events, not only will players know all of the rules, they'll also start to know what the judges are looking for, and they'll start to be familiar with ways to circumvent the rules. And you'll therefore not only need to be familiar with your rules of your game, but also ready to stop things and ready to watch out for people trying to circumvent them. The difficulty for the most difficult level, perhaps, is in the middle, where you've got people at tag rugby in A grades, or your sort of MCQs or PTQs or whatever replaced them this month in the Magic world, where people know the rules, but their actual knowledge of the rules isn't as good as what they think. And that leads to the most level of arguments, perhaps a high level of mistakes, perhaps a high level of cheats or breaking the rules, because people are very confident in something, but they're not actually right. And I've consistently said to the managers in the tag rugby world that dealing with these mid-scale things, the intermediate and A grades, is actually more challenging than dealing with beginners, and even more challenging than dealing with very advanced international players for that. Does that map across to judging? To a greater or lesser degree, but I'd be interested in seeing people's views, so do please feel free to type stuff into the questions and discussion. So what else do we have? The timelines. So everything we do in both games is under an amount of time pressure. In tag rugby, we train referees to make the decisions, three things: quick, correct, and decisive. QCD, quick, correct, and decisive. We could probably do that in judging as well. We can set those goals as well. However, we will add to that in tag rugby. If you can't make your decisions quick, correct, and decisive, if you can't manage all three, pick any two. Challenge, perhaps quick. So a decision that's correct and decisive, as long as you've come down with your decision and you're confident in yourself, even though you might have taken 15 or 30 seconds to make it, you will probably get on. If your decision is quick and correct, you might get away with not being as decisive or as straightforward about it. And then the most controversial of the three, quick and decisive, if you have managed to get both of those, at that point, you might even get away with making a mistake. Maybe that maps across to judging. I'm not going to go out and encourage judges to be quick and decisive if they can't be correct, but I think the other parts will. Let's see if we can get the next piece of the video running. So in this case, what's happened was the player. The question was whether the player here has had his tag removed from his left-hand side before or after he got the ball away. I've called immediately that the tag was there. The commentators support it. I think I have to say I thought it was right, regardless of anything else. Let's have a look quick through the chat so far. Is it like the Levine trench for players? Yes, in short. I'm not 100% familiar with the concept, but I remember reading about it somewhere. This is the case of players' actual knowledge and skill moving faster up moving slower than their perception of their own knowledge and skill. Thank you for the cat photo. Everyone who wants to pay cat tax, please feel free. The more the merrier. Possibly put it in the cat and pangolin pictures channel up the way, rather than clogging this one, if you please. Newer or less experienced judges would be more intimidated by the more experienced. Yes, in that way, that one's harder. Yes. So if you get past that, the middle segment has a wider variation and people might try things experienced players might not. Yes, We're able to get away with that better in tag rugby. We have a bit better categorization of referees and players, so that we're able to match them one to the next. But I guess that applies as well with judges at different levels. So I think we're probably okay. Let's see then. Okay, so let's move on to something on the video next segment that you probably don't have to be able to do as a judge. So we probably don't need to be able to do this as a judge. We don't need to be able to go catch the intercept, start here. We probably don't need to be able to get all the way down those 55 meters or so in a short space of time. Emilian says, when there is a call at a Japanese Magic Fest. Yes, absolutely. Haven't been to one, but we'll come to. I wish I could do this in MTG in a second. I'm going to leave you in suspense as to what that entails. Um, the getting from one end, getting from one end of the hall to another in 11 seconds is not a useful skill. In fact, it's not even a thing you probably should attempt to do. It's a thing I've gone and done for amusement values in Magic Fest on occasion and have been properly told off for it. Please don't. The However, that is not to say that stamina and physical fitness play no part in being a magic judge. I can guarantee you that after three 10-hour shifts on the floor of a magic fest, the people who have stronger physical fitness, who or whether including cardio and strength and posture, those are the people who are going to be still managing and still able to carry on and enjoy a long and fun evening judge party when everything is said and done. Those people are going to do better overall than people who don't. So I do encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to take a bit of time to work on that physical fitness if you possibly can. Appreciate that we have a little bit of a plague going on at the moment, and that may make things more difficult. But it is an area where I've certainly seen that as I've improved, as I've improved my personal standards and my personal physical fitness over time, that has paid dividends when I've had the opportunity to judge. Right, where are we? Logistics and management. So there's more division of duties, there's more clear division of duties in the world of tag rugby. The referee, for the most part, will just turn up, deal with the match in front of them, and wrap up. Maybe occasionally they'll have to help by putting out markings for the pitch or something like that. But as a general rule, it's sort of that's their one job, and there's different people to manage the scores and to liaise with the venue and so on. And there's little overlap. Judges can be a bit more. We need to fill into different roles whenever we do different things, or whenever there's an extra requirement, and we can often find ourselves moving between tasks, and needing to manage that movement. Thankfully, the referee just gets on, and after 40 minutes, is able to clear off again. But the referee is pretty solo. There's no appeals in tag rugby. The referee gets to have his decision as final, and there's no further argument or discussion. They've got to manage. The and managing the players is a bit of an art form in itself. So I sometimes wish I could do this in Magic. I debated whether I want to include it. Let's play the video. So in this case, the player has just tried to claim a decision from me for contact, and it's happened a few times in the previous few minutes. So here's what I said. Okay, this really depends on having audio. So I'm very sorry if you didn't get to didn't get to hear the audio there. As Aryan said, check the seminar information channel and you can watch it from there. The I don't. I'm afraid I don't know why my video isn't synchronizing across. Why the audio isn't synchronizing across. There's probably some setting that I haven't been able to manage in Discord. In any event, the thing here is that we're able as tag rugby referees to be considerably more direct. There's no way that I can just go up to a player and say, "This is my call. You're not going to dispute it. You need to deal with it and carry on." Maybe as the first thing I'm going to say. Maybe I get to that point if a player has continued arguing over the course of a few minutes or a few refutations. Maybe I'm then able to start shutting them down more effectively. But we need to be a lot more careful as judges to ensure that we accept feedback and discussion from players to a reasonable degree. And this turns back around to my point on timelines, where in a Magic tournament that's probably going on all day, we're more able to suffer a delay of a minute or two than we are at a tag rugby event. The traditional tag rugby match lasts 40 minutes, but there are daily tournaments, indeed, as the clip we just had was, and there are daily tournaments where the matches last less than 15 minutes each, and we just can't afford any delays. So I've run through everything I have. There's about 5 minutes left on the clock before we wrap up. I didn't. There's been a couple of questions that have come through, and I've tried to answer. If there are any more questions, do feel free to put them in the chat, or indeed to push to talk or come off mute if you'd like to ask them verbally in the next 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, thanks for that, Marco. I'm not familiar enough. This is the first time I've ever presented or shared anything on Discord, so I'm still learning through it. Perhaps in the future we might get a manual together in order to figure out how to work. So I don't even know what a Discord overlay is. Do I have any examples of times I've taken skills from refereeing to judging? I'll answer Neil's first. No, Neil's, I could hear you sound fine. Jan's question, do I have any examples of times I've taken skills from refereeing to judging or vice versa? I think one of the main ones has been from judging the skill of identifying the critical path, the skill of knowing when a decision that you're about to make or an action that you're about to take is going to potentially slow down the rest of your day or the rest of the event. The Just because an all-day tag rugby event or even a normal match runs on a very strict time scale, just as much as we try to do at Magic Fests. So we need to always make sure that we progress the events as long as possible, and recognizing the critical path, recognizing when something you're about to do or that you're currently doing is running the risk of delaying the rest of the day, is one of those skills. What else can I think of? I think the just how to deal with difficult players and even difficult colleagues, I guess. Moving from judging into refereeing, we get the chance as judges, or we used to get the chance as judges, to participate in simulations and to deal with and to sometimes deal with challenging players. Because everything is coalesced into a much faster setting in tag rugby. Just being able to prepare and think about those things in your head before you need to ever deploy before you'd ever need to deploy that skill is beneficial as well. If I think of anything else, I'll mention it. I don't see any other questions right now. And okay, there's a 10-minute break before the next session anyway. My next thing was going to say, let's finish early so people can go to the bathroom or something, but I guess not.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Thomas. Yeah, as said, you can answer some more questions if people have them. Otherwise, we will be back at 17:30 with Nick's second presentation.